Hi guys, so welcome to my first preview of the Atlantic Division, and it's going to be the Tampa Bay Lightning, who I am finishing first in the Atlantic Division. So last season they finished first in the Atlantic as well. They lost to the Washington Capitals in round three. Disappointing after they loaded up with guys like McDonough and JT Miller. However, they re-signed both. So they didn't make too many changes over the offseason. They had a meeting with John Tavares, but eventually they missed out. There's rumors going around they might be interested in Erik Karlsson, which would be absolutely insane on a pairing with Victor Hedman, but has not happened yet. They're already looking like a great team prior to this offseason, so no changes necessary. They're loaded on paper. So offensively, looking at their lines, they're absolutely loaded. Nikita Kucherov is the best winger in the league, one of the best players in the league, definitely top three in my opinion. Steven Stamkos is slightly overrated in my opinion, just because his 5-on-5 production isn't elite by any measure. Um, he certainly lost his step since his multiple injuries with his knee and his ACL and stuff like that. So I'm not even sure. I don't know if he's a natural centerman at this point. He's probably better suited off on right wing in terms of his defensive impact, which isn't too good, and his 5-on-5 play isn't good by most measures. Or elite. It's still good, but it's not elite. And he certainly lost his step since his injury, as I mentioned before. JT Miller's interesting. I really like him. Produces really good relative results, and he can be a good, third player on that line with Kucherov and Stamkos. Braden Point's incredible. I think he's the second best player on the third best player on the team after Kucherov and Hedman. Audrich Palat's really good and still very underrated. And Yanni Orr's a nice surprise. He can fill in at center. He can fill in at left wing, right wing. And he's an amazing find and a steal at the cap that they're paying him this season, which I believe is just under $1 million. Defensively, they're all really solid. Dan Girardi's terrible, but they got a Norris Trophy winner in Victor Hedman and another real good top pairing guy in Ryan McDonough on their second pair. Anton Strawman is really good, and Mikhail Sergachev is pretty good, but overrated because of how sheltered he was, and his on ice impact was good when you look at his raw statistics and unadjusted statistics. However, he was sheltered heavily and faced really, really bad competition, was fed really easy minutes, and produced on the power play, which inflated his numbers. But they got one of the best defensemen in the NHL in Victor Hedman that they can throw out there in a playoff game for 30 minutes a night, and then they got Ryan McDonough backing him up, so not the worst thing in the world. They're pretty good defensively. Vasilevsky, their goalie, I think is the second best goalie in the league in my opinion after Sergei Bobrovsky. He's incredible. It was clear that he got worn out last season, and they're going to need to give more starts to the backup goalie this season for sure. So, looking at their on ice results, they're terrific. Um, in terms of their possession stats, fifth in Corsi 4 at 52.1%. Corsi 4 per 60, 52.6, which is fifth. Corsi against per 60, 48.37, which is sixth. So they have a really, really strong defensive structure and offensive structure as well in terms of the way that John Cooper deploys them. And there was recently an article on The Athletic, I believe it was by Tyler Dello, talking about the best forward checking teams in the NHL, and Tampa was number one. That's not really a surprise given how they're not a real physical team. However, they're really fast and they're really skilled with their sticks and they're really smart, which allows them to forecheck really well and put pressure on the opposing defenders, cause turnovers, and spend time in the offensive zone, which is where you want to spend time. In terms of their on ice goal impact, goals for per 60, 2.89, which is first. Um, Goals against per 60, 2.14, which is 12th. In terms of their expected results, expected goals for per 60, 2.28, which is 14th. Expected goals against per 60, 2.05, which is 5th. So you might be looking at their expected goal statistics and say that they outperformed their actual on ice goals for per 60 stat. And you are right, however. Stuff like expected goals, and when you look at things like overperforming or performing their on ice results, it largely depends on the talent level. And Tampa Bay has a lot of elite shooters, such as Stamkos and Kucherov, who naturally overperform their expected shooting percentage. So it's not really that much of a surprise that they can outperform their expected goals for, and I think it's sustainable and repeatable over the long run just because of how much elite talent they have. In terms of their goals against, um, I think Vasilevsky tiring out has a lot to do with that. He really trailed off in the second half of the season, but with more rest, he can definitely recover, and I think he's going to win a Vezina Trophy sometime in the near future. In terms of their PDO, it was 102.35, which is first, and I don't think that that's representative of being completely lucky, just because of how talented they are in goal. And as I mentioned, they can sustain a really high shooting percentage just because of how elite their shooters are. So, while we can probably not expect a PDO of 102.35 every season, consistently over 100 or 101 is definitely possible. In terms of their penalty differential, they were +1, which is 16th, and that's really good to see if you're a Tampa Bay fan, because um, you want that power play out with Nikita Kucherov and Steven Stamkos on the left flank and Victor Hedman there, and guys like Braden Point and JT Miller who can fill in on the other two slots on the power play. So their most important player, in my opinion, is Ryan McDonough, who had a down season last year, partly due to playing in New York, but produced a goals above replacement of 8.46 in 2016, which is the year I'm going to use to compare. And his comparables were Alex Pietrangelo, Justin Falk, Brett Pesce. And he really needs to get back to the level where he can produce like guys like that, because Tampa's going to need to rely on him to play some heavy minutes if they're going to go anywhere in the playoffs. The least important player, or their disappointing player a little bit, is Steven Stamkos. And he produced, I believe it was 12 goals above replacement last season, which isn't bad, but it's less than Braden Point. The comparables for Steven Stamkos are Jordan Staal, Jason Zucker, Tervo Teravainen, Kevin Fiala, and Chris Kreider, which are definitely all incredible players. I mean, I think, as I mentioned in my Carolina preview, Jordan Staal's incredibly underrated. But this is Steven Stamkos we're talking about. He's an elite talent. He's incredible. He was regarded as for a long time as the second best player in the NHL to Sidney Crosby. And I don't know if injuries will ever allow him to get back to that level that he was at prior to his injuries, but Steven Stamkos needs to be better 5-on-5 in my opinion. The talent is there. He just needs to bounce back. Maybe moving to the wing and putting him with a guy like Braden Point would help, but I'm not the coach. So, in conclusion, I have them finishing first, as I mentioned before. I think Toronto's going to give them a run for their money. However, I think that Tampa was just too well rounded. They have too much elite talent, and they're going to narrowly outduel Toronto for the first spot in the Atlantic Division, home ice advantage throughout the playoffs, because I have them finishing first in the East as well. So, thank you for watching my video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.